Welcome everyone to BizHack Live Digital Marketing Masterclass Series, Season 6, the culminating season of a year of amazing programming, and with hopes that this is just the beginning of our work together with Strive 305, and we have big plans we hope to be able to announce soon about that. My name is Dan Gretsch. I'm the CEO and founder of BizHack Academy and your host for a 4-part series exploring the metaverse and metaverse marketing, the metaverse and Web3 for businesses. Today, we're going to focus on metaverse marketing, how brands are rewriting the rules of marketing in the metaverse. We have 3 amazing guests, Cesi, Jay, and Jackie. Next week at this time on Wednesday, 9/14 to 12:30, we're going to be talking about the financial and legal implications of Web3 for business. Listen, we're not assuming any knowledge. So if you're like, what is metaverse? What is Web3? Don't worry. Brett's going to give us some easy to understand definitions of these terms so that we all start in the same spot. We're looking to be as inclusive as possible. I did also want to alert you to the Q&A below in your Zoom. If you have any questions now or at any point during the presentation, put those in the Q&A box and I will be folding them in to our live Q&A session with our guests. So it's just the Q&A button and you can go ahead and ask a question in there. Please don't put questions in the chat. They're going to get lost. In 2 weeks from today on 9/21, we're going to now turn to internal communications, how to engage employees and recruit talent using the metaverse. Brett is going to be one of our featured guests from StarMark for the amazing work they're doing in using the metaverse for town hall meetings and employee engagement. And then Angela Anthony from Scoutable is going to talk about how it's being used for education and recruiting. And then finally, on 9/28, we're going to be featuring case studies in how to do business using Web3 in the metaverse with Dr. Musina Morris from Morehouse College. 2 years ago, she built an entire virtual campus for Morehouse College in the metaverse. It's just an extraordinary story. So buckle up and stay tuned for these great 4 sessions. We're so proud. We've been working months to put these together for you. The simple goal of these is to provide you non-hyped, real-life information about the next great technological revolution, which is what we call Web3 and the metaverse. So Web 1 was the internet, websites. Web 2 was social media, dominated by Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Web 3 is the emerging technology built on the blockchain and that utilizes important tools like the metaverse. We're going to explain to you what those are and the kind of business activities that are happening today in those spaces. And at the end of this, as a gift for coming, we're going to give you a set of best practices culled from all of our guests over the 4 sessions of how you can get started in Web3 and the metaverse right away. I'm going to be the host for this journey together. My name is Dan Gretsch. I have a background in journalism. I was for 15 years, a correspondent on NPR, PBS. I worked also at the Washington Post and the Miami Herald, and I was the news director at WLRN. I actually created Miami's first podcast, Under the Sun, long before we even had a name for them. It was a weekly series that we would put online and on air. And since 2013, I've really transitioned from being a journalistic storyteller into a business storyteller, heading up digital marketing for a large company, 2 software startups, and then starting my own digital marketing training and consulting business, which is BizHack. Went to Princeton as an undergrad. I'm a proud Panther, got my master's degree there, and I also was a Fulbright scholar. I want to introduce my partner in crime for producing this series, our subject matter expert, Brett Cesi, Chief Digital Officer of StarMark. And Brett, did you want to just say a word about your background and what brought you here today?
Sure. I mean, I love technology. So, it's been in my blood for a long time. I built my first commerce website in 1995. I've spun off and was the president of several technology companies. I have patents that I've gotten on technology products. I manage the innovation lab here at StarMark. and we get to play with all the cool new technology in the lab. And not all of those things have real practical applications, but when they do, it's always exciting to bring those to our clients and to say, here's how this new innovative technology can work on your behalf and help you meet your goals. And so, you know, for the last few years, it's been augmented reality, and then really in about the last couple of years since the Quest 2 came out, it's virtual reality is really made it accessible to everybody. Really kind of made it take off, and so excited to be here.
And, you know, Brett is an incredibly modest. He runs and was one of the founders of StarMark, perhaps one of the most storied and best known digital agency, always in South Florida, always on the cutting edge. He's an incredible designer and programmer and partner, and really is very much responsible for the excellence that you're going to see today in terms of our amazing guests. I also did want to say that, you know, I am not pretending to be an expert in this field. In many ways, I represent you, the business owner who's confused and curious. And so I'm going to be using that as my tool to help you guys, to be a translator for you of what can get very hyped and very complex. And one thing I do want to promise is I am going to approach this as a journalist, right? Which is where my background is. And as a journalist, I think so much of this stuff is like a ledger of checks that will never be cashed, right? Promises that will never be kept. And so part of what I'm always going to be doing with Cesi and Jay today and with other guests coming up is saying, okay, that sounds great. You know, I am reading Snow Crash, you know, the originator of the idea of the metaverse by Neil Stephenson back in the early 90s. This was originated in this book, and I'm about halfway through it and loving it. And it's incredible how prescient he was. But there's so much of this that is really TBD. And so we're going to try to determine like what's today, what's tomorrow, and what's hype, and try to give you guys a little bit of a clear picture of that. I want to introduce and welcome to the stage our amazing partner, Danilo Vargas from the Diversity Inclusion Office of Miami-Dade County, the Office of the Mayor of Miami-Dade County. Danilo is the creator and the leader of the Miami-Dade County Strive 305 initiative. Danilo, welcome, and thank you to you and the mayor's office for supporting this, for funding this, for making this possible.
Oh, thank you so much, Dan. And I just want to say hello to everyone. My name is Danilo Vargas, and I'm the Small Business Innovation Manager for Mayor Daniela Levine Cava. And, you know, I have the great honor and pleasure of leading the Mayor's Strive 305 Small Business Initiative. And in fact, the goal of Strive 305 is really just to help you have access to the services and the support that you need to grow. In other words, to help you make more money, right? And actually, it's money season at Miami-Dade County because we are right in the middle of budget hearings. And so I want to invite anybody here who appreciates what we're doing here through Strive 305, through these master classes. I invite you. Today we have a budget conversation with Mayor Cava at the South Dade Regional Library in South Dade. And then we're going to have one next week at Miami Lakes as well. And I invite everybody to be engaged with our county government and participate. You can go to tomorrow's budget hearing at the Stephen P. Clark Center tomorrow, starting at 5. And so today we meet with the mayor at 6 p.m. It's your chance to get to know her, shake her hand, and ask her any questions that you have. Bring your tough questions. She doesn't shy away from those. And I just want to say also that I'm super excited about this class, Dan, because the mayor's office and BizHack have been working on this new season 6 for months. And so I'm really excited. It's time to forget the hype and get real about what Web 3.0 or 3 and the metaverse really mean for small business owners. Because just like in the 1990s, when the World Wide Web was born, there's a sea change happening. And those who understand it and learn how to use these new technologies are going to have a competitive edge. So that's what season 6 is all about for me. And I want to congratulate everybody for joining us. Please take some good notes and just get ready to learn a ton about the brand new world of Web 3. So thank you, Dan. Back to you.
Absolutely. And I want to welcome our guests, our partners who helped us promote this in the community. It's really a who's who of chambers of commerce and small business and minority and BIPOC-owned and women-owned business support organizations. And we're so grateful to you guys for helping spread the word and bringing the nearly 100 people who are here today in front of us. We've actually had more than 1,800 people attend one of our 6 seasons of masterclass sessions, and we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you to our promotional partners. If anyone here on the call today is an organization that supports small businesses, BIPOC-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, LinkedIn, we would love to throw your logo on here. Please let me know. You can reach out to me. Tiffany, if you could put my email and contact information. You guys, we're always looking, we're trying to be as inclusive as possible, as community oriented as possible. And this is really, at least for South Florida, who's who of business support organizations. All right, without further ado, I want to welcome our 2 expert, we have 3 guests today. One of them is a super special surprise and none of you would know about. So we'll start with the 2 panelists or the 2 guests for today's conversation. I'm going to be conducting this a little bit like a radio show, given that my background. And so this is going to be more of a conversation rather than your typical panel discussion. The first is the amazing Franchesca Cesi de Quesada Covey. She is a partner at Theventurecity and a tech innovation advisor at Miami-Dade County. Her specialization is investing in early stage companies and becoming an extension of their team by providing strategic growth insights and capital. One of the companies that she invested in, which is one of the first things I'd like to hear about, is a Metaverse marketing company. And so we're really excited for you to share us a little bit about that. You're the tech and innovation advisor to the mayor, which is how we learned about you. Thank you, Danilo. And before joining Theventurecity, you worked at Facebook, now known as Meta, to drive cross-Facebook company strategy development and to build scaled development teams supporting internet.org, SMB commerce, and crypto efforts, Novi and DM. So really what Franchesca represents for us today is someone who is intimately in touch with some of the most innovative startups in this space and has a long history of being on the cutting edge of the highest levels of technology. We're so honored to have you here, Cesi. I also wanted to welcome Jay Miolla from the Cuttlefish. They are a firm that's been on the forefront of immersive tech for 15 years, inventing and launching bleeding edge digital experiences for major brands. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how major brands are using this in their marketing. And we've brought up a bunch of really fun examples that Brett will take us through, and that Jay will use. The metaverse is not like a theoretical construct. It's no longer something from a book. It's actually happening today with actual firms in a variety of ways to support products and services and experiences. And so Jay is going to give us some of the kind of dispatches from the frontier of what's possible in the metaverse. And we're so excited to have you here. And then finally, here's our big special surprise, Jackie Jones from LinkedIn, head of strategic partnerships, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I love that word belonging. I'll definitely want to ask you more about that. You know, we are at BizHack trying to create a space that is inclusive, and we're so lucky to partner with the mayor's office, who's dedicated to the same thing. And, you know, Jackie is one of Brett's clients. Brett brought Jackie to the table, and Jackie is going to spend a Q&A session at the end of our session today, a kind of little bonus. So if you're able to stick around till 2 p.m. Eastern, when we wrap up the regular session, we'll bring Jackie to have her talk about how she's unlocking economic opportunities for diverse groups through thought leadership partnerships and new product offerings at LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Jackie, for being here today. One more thing. People always ask us, can we get a copy of this recording? The good news is yes. Either the BizHack or the StarMark YouTube channels will be within the next day or two posting a link to this very recording. And that will be the pattern. After each of the sessions, you'll get a link to the recording. By virtue of you signing up today, you will get a follow-up email from us with the link to our YouTube channels, inviting you to watch the recordings and share those. At the end of the session, we're going to compile all the insights from all the guests into a summary of key takeaways, and we'll be sending that to you as a thank you for showing up today at the end of the session. You're also automatically enrolled in the 3 subsequent masterclasses, so nothing else you need to do except mark your calendars, 12:30 on the next 3 Wednesdays. And if you know someone who would benefit from this, Tiffany, if you could please put this link into there. We are, our goal is to have at least 100 at every one of these. We broke the 100 mark, which was our goal for today. And we want to give this information to as many people as possible. So if you know anyone who you think would benefit from learning a little bit about Web3 and the metaverse for business, please invite them. Today's webinar is how brands are rewriting the rules of marketing in the metaverse. I wanted to welcome up Brett to talk a little bit about what is the metaverse, what is Web3, what the heck are we talking about? Please ground us in reality.
All right, I'll just kind of give you a couple setups for some basic terms, so to speak. But you know, the metaverse is sort of like the internet. It is ultimately going to be a single thing. Does it exist today? I would, probably I would say no, not necessarily. We're still in its infancy. And like the early internet, people like which we would call Web 1.0 allowed people to create websites, right? So on the internet, you have websites. In the metaverse, you could have meta worlds, which do exist today. And a lot of meta worlds do exist, but they're not yet interconnected. The cool thing about a website is anybody can link to anybody. The small guy can link to Microsoft, and Microsoft can link to someone else, and someone else can link back to the small guy. And this interconnectivity makes the internet work, right? These meta worlds allow people to pass from one to another using their same avatar, their same identity, then these meta worlds are connected, and then you'll have the metaverse. And so that's kind of the overview of that. There are the meta worlds that exist today are like, Roblox or Fortnite or Minecraft or Horizon Worlds. These are all examples of these meta worlds that absolutely exist today. They have millions of people on them, right? A lot of new ones are being spawned, right? And ultimately there will be a standard that allows this interconnectivity to create the metaverse. And that's a very exciting thing. Web3 just defines like the third generation of the internet. The first generation of the internet was allowing people to build websites. The little guy and the big guy could kind of be on equal playing field when the websites were able to be built. Web 2 was more about social media and the socialization. So that was the launch and spawn of social platforms, allowing brands to have direct connections with their customers through social platforms and people to connect with each other. And then Web 3 is really just saying, what is the next version of the internet going to take? And the large take on this is more about ownership. And this is where blockchain technology, which is basically a distributed ledger, and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, come into play. Is Web 3 is going to allow us or anyone, to have some more ownership over ourselves. A lot of people today say, part of the problem with social media is that we're the product, but we don't necessarily own anything about ourselves, right? So Web3 isn't a whole new thing. It's really saying like, we're going to take some of Web 1 and Web 2, and we're going to allow some more ownership of yourself in Web 3. And we're going to use the blockchain to allow commerce to happen. So that's just some basics about the metaverse and Web3. Clear as mud. That's why we have our experts on the call.
Exactly. A lot of this is clear as mud. We're going to be, by the end of this 4th session, you'll have a pretty clear idea of what is the Web3, what is the metaverse, and very concrete examples of how businesses are starting to use it. I'd actually like to, in that spirit, start with you, Cesi. You are, a technologist, you're an investor, you're an advisor. But there is one company that I wanted you to start in telling us about, which is Matt Goulet, the founder of Sturdy, which is one of the companies that you're supporting and investing in. Can you talk a little bit about what Matt Goulet and the Sturdy team are trying to do with metaverse marketing?
Absolutely. So Dan, thanks so much for having me. Brett, it's wonderful to be here. And Danilo, thank you so much. I saw some Danilo chat love going by. Danilo, somebody said, Danilo is such a pillar of our community and is such a leader of all the great work that's happening here. So Danilo, thank you for having me here and for being such a steward of our community and of Mayor Levine Cava's administration. So as Dan, you were saying, my background is from Facebook, now called Meta. I left before it was called Meta, so I still call it Facebook. And there I started working on Meta's crypto efforts. And one of the things to think about when you think about Web3, and the reason that it's called Web3, it's not called crypto, it's not called blockchain, all of these terms are used interchangeably, is that Web3 takes the principles of user experience from Web 2, which Web 2, that's what we were able to define. We made it really easy for people to get online, really easy to engage with products. And it takes that and it thinks about how to implement those principles of user experience in decentralized ways. So in ways that everyone can own their experience and where there is no central hub making decisions for the content that you see or how you keep your money or how you engage with others on platforms. And when I put on my investor hat and I think about what's most exciting for me about Web3, it's about thinking about how you can create really long-term value for users and for companies. And so one of the companies that we invested in, as Dan was saying, is a company called Sturdy Exchange. Sturdy Exchange started as an NFT marketplace. For those that are familiar with NFTs, they're more than just JPEGs that you own. They also give you utility to make sure that you can interact with the world around you. And the best NFT projects have really strong utility use cases, both in the digital world and in real life. And so they started off as an NFT marketplace. And what they found was that through NFTs, you can have long-term relationships as brands with your customers, and you can deliver longer-term engagement with your customers by making sure that you are better understanding their motivations through an NFT. And so what they're focused on right now is advertising through NFT products with both in real life and digital one-of-a-kind experiences. But they're also focused on how to lower the cost of acquisition and increase the lifetime value of customers at a time where Facebook and Google advertising costs are going up. And those costs are going up for two reasons. One, you have more people advertising, so the space that you have to advertise is more limited. And two, the new policies that Apple has put in place really restrict the way that Facebook and Google can best deliver ads. And so the promise of Sturdy is lower CAC, increase LTV, and deliver more delightful long-term experiences via advertising for customers.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And one of the ways it lowers the customer acquisition cost and increases lifetime value is by creating really exciting, fun, immersive experiences that connect you really intimately with the brand. And I wanted to give you a quick example of Miller Lite doing this. And I think this is hilarious because I thought the Clydesdales belonged to Budweiser, but when it comes to the metaverse, you know, there's all things are fair game. So we're going to play a quick video here. I'm going to optimize it for a video clip, and fingers crossed that this works. And then Jay, I'd love for you to comment about how Miller Lite and other brands are starting to do this. So here goes. Let me know just with a thumbs up if you guys are hearing this.
Welcome to the first big game ad in the metaverse.
How's it a big game ad if it's not even in the same universe as the big game?
Well, relatable farmer, because we have a culturally relevant pop star. And majestic horses.
What do horses have to do with beer?
America! And to appeal to the masses, we added puppies, avocados from another country, aliens, a Miller Lite robot, explosions, overly dramatic music, and more talking animals.
Oh, this Miller Lite beer ocean tastes great!
And in a not-so-subtle attempt to get press, we'll launch this ad exclusively in the metaverse.
Wait, where are we?
Well, it's just like reality, but with worse graphics. Oh yeah, don't forget an iconic tagline.
All right, Jay, so there is our first glimpse at a metaverse ad. You want to talk a little bit about that campaign and and some of the work that you've done with brands in the space.
Oh, absolutely. So what was interesting about that campaign, I was peripherally involved at the planning stages of it. So I was privy to budget, set up, all the various players, the licensing and what have you. What was really interesting about that is Miller Lite was just fed up with having to spend as much as they were going to on Super Bowl ads and wanted a different and fresh way to sort of get their message out, get something interesting out to the masses. It was completely a PR stunt. There were no KPIs associated with it. It was really a pure test and learn. They were willing to assign a certain dollar amount to this effort in order to create a space, that was much more like an experiential marketing execution in the metaverse than it was anything else. There was a time and a moment where you could actually watch the ad itself. But what was really interesting about it, and I think what you're finding brands do successfully, is this notion of creating a space where people can connect with one another by doing things that are either interesting, casual gaming, or social, or the like. And this was one such experience. So they partnered with Decentraland in their version of the metaverse, which I think is interesting to note too for some people on the webinar here. They might think of the metaverse as being only a VR headset accessible thing, but as Brett mentioned, through games like Roblox or Fortnite. It is accessible through the television, and Decentraland is not even on headsets at the moment. And it tends to be one of the more popular spots for metaverse landing and some of these marketing executions. So what was interesting about the Miller Lite was truly, it was a physical space in the metaverse where people could gather. There was a bouncer at the door who was checking dates, of course, because they have to have their gateway. Once you got in, you could play darts, you could interact with people, you could play shuffleboard. They hid a bunch of NFTs around, and I find that that's another very powerful tool that marketers are using in the metaverse, or these limited time freemiums, NFTs that they can collect. Sometimes they're wearables, sometimes they're just digital tchotchkes that you can sort of keep in your object bag. But they found the level of engagement was through the roof. And as you might expect with some of these early sort of technologies, some of the tracking and analytics behind it aren't quite as formal as we would hope, or we will expect to see in the future. But I certainly think by visitation, time spent, they found this to be a very good use of funds to try and underspend and get the type of splash around the Super Bowl that they were hoping for. And they largely activated their most engaged and most brand loyal audiences through their owned channels, which I think was an important way for them to get the type of visitation that they were hoping for. That barrier of entry for people who think that it's going to only be in a headset. No, I don't own a headset, or I don't have a gaming PC or what have you. They were really able to kind of break through and get the sort of numbers that they had hoped would start this visitation.
Are those numbers public? Do we have a sense of how many people actually engaged with this ad in the metaverse?
So this was an extended campaign. It ran for a week. It wasn't just at the moment of the Super Bowl. Actually, that number was the lowest it was all week. But yeah, they had in the hundreds of thousands of people visiting. Yeah.
So I just want to point out, and I'm going to bring Brett up now to give a couple other very concrete examples that are going to blow your mind about products and services that are today being marketed and bought and sold in the metaverse. I just want to emphasize that this isn't theoretical. This is happening, and many of you, hundreds of thousands of you, many of you on this session today. In fact, if you could throw this in the chat, have any of you interacted with the brand either through an NFT or in the metaverse? Please let us know in the chat. I'm very curious, of the 100 or so folks who are here, how many of you have had a brand experience? And while you guys are chatting about that, I'm going to invite up Brett to give two really concrete examples, one about a product and one about a service in the metaverse.
Sure thing. So, the Miller Lite is a great example of how people can, engage with a brand, and who might, who sells a product that you're not going to be able to consume in a digital way or in the metaverse, so to speak. Nike, though, they make a product and you can consume this in the metaverse, so to speak. And one of the things that you can have in the metaverse is an avatar, which is a digital representation of yourself, which I think everybody saw in that video, and you're probably familiar with this concept. You can buy Nike, this case, crypto kicks. And this is just one example of the many fashion brands that are creating product that you can actually purchase and wear in the metaverse. So there are some brands who are doing exclusive releases of their fashion. There was actually a fashion week in the metaverse where 50 different brands all participated. You know, from Dolce & Gabbana to H&M. I mean, and everybody's selling their products, in this case, as NFTs for people to purchase. So in this case, you can buy crypto kicks, you can don them on your avatar. There's an app in the real world that you can use on your phone. Then you point it at your actual shoes, and it will do an augmented reality version of the shoes wrapped around, which is kind of cool too, because then you can kind of see them in the real world. But this is an example of, you know, Miller Lite's an example of a brand doing a experiential thing in the metaverse, and Nike is doing a product or an object in the metaverse that they can sell. So.
Yeah, just to dovetail on that, Brett, you know, what's interesting about this is that it's not them creating the full experience, but really that it's like almost like a sponsorship opportunity where they're able to kind of dip their toes in and do something that has value more broadly than just creating one location in a metaverse that's doing a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Great point. Because in theory, as I mentioned at the top, once these meta worlds are interconnected and you can pass from one to the other, your avatar wearing these kicks could be going from one meta world to the next, wearing them over in all of them. Yeah.
Right.
Which is, you know, one of the frustrating. So any of you guys who have kids who are on Roblox are already beginning to experience what this world looks like. I have been giving my 9-year-old daughter allowances since she was 5, and every single dollar that she's been given has been spent on accessories in Roblox. Weird accessories like faces and hair and clothing, and none of that clothing was branded, but it could have been. And so part of sort of what you're seeing is you could imagine that your kids in Roblox are going to now spend, in this case, 0.5 Ethereum, which is about $850 last time we checked, to buy Nike shoes in the metaverse. Mm-hmm. So this is an actual exchange that's actually selling crypto kicks for wearing on the metaverse, and the price is $850. I wanted you to also talk about so we're right now experiencing the US Open. Serena and Nadal are out, my two favorites. Grey Goose created an activation. So Grey Goose is a product company, but they created an experiential experience in the metaverse. You want to talk about this one, Brett?
Yeah, so more aligned with the Miller Lite. You know, obviously can't sell alcohol in the metaverse, but can certainly sponsor events and create a pavilion. So what they actually did, and this is actually happening this week, it's live. They call it it's a meta lounge, basically, where they show you how to make the signature drink of the game. And during the US Open, they're doing limited edition giveaways of NFTs and products and things like that you can collect and pick up while you're in the metaverse. So it gives you a reason to want to attend their meta lounge in the metaverse. Yeah. And, you know, obviously Bacardi is a local company here in Miami, but they're doing a ton of things in the metaverse from an experimentation standpoint. A lot of them are typically brand engagements that you can do that can be, you know, fun experiences so that you have a positive experience with their brands.
That's great. Were there any other examples that you wanted to bring up, Brett, before I wanted to move on to Cesi?
I'd say let's get back to our experts.
All right, Cesi.
I was just going to build off of what Brett was saying on the Bacardi one, because it's such a good example. It's not just about the experiences. One of the things that Bacardi did, which I think is taking experiences, taking brand alignment, but also really showing high utility, is that they featured musical artists, put their songs into NFTs, and fractionalized the songs and gave parts of the songs away as NFTs to brand oil customers for Bacardi. So here, Bacardi was not only immersing you into a digital experience where you were getting an NFT, but you got the rights to a song, to a piece of a song from an emerging artist, benefiting that artist also. And so it's not just about sort of these delightful immersive experiences where one day we will be able to put on a headset and go into, another dimension and experience something in that is outside of our sort of reality. It's also about how you bring these moments into your reality. And so that's the part that I'm most excited about, these moments where you bridge it, where you not only sort of put on a headset and go to the Grey Goose area, but where you're really able to take the Grey Goose area and bring it back into your reality, like Bacardi is doing. So just to add another example.
That's great. So I wanted to, part of the goal here is to get the businesses that are on the call and watching this afterwards to think about, how could I apply this to my brand? I mean, ultimately, that's what this is really about, which is the metaverse is a marketing channel like social media and other things. And so how do you make the most use of it now and how to think about approaching that? So I'm going to start with you, Jay. The question is, how do you approach metaverse marketing? There are at least 3 ways to think about it. One is direct monetization, which is Nike selling shoes, right? Collecting the fee for that. Second is more of a brand play to engage audiences to deepen the relationship. That's what Grey Goose and Miller are doing, it's about branding. And then the third is to upgrade the sales experience. In other words, when you're actually in the process, let's say, of a B2B company of selling to a prospect, you could actually, rather than using a Zoom, you could put on headsets and have a virtual meeting. So I'd love for you to address one or all 3 of those in terms of direct monetization, kind of more branding and experiential marketing, which I know is your specialization, and also even just sales experience and how you can upgrade that.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And those are the 3 major buckets. I mean, it obviously ties back to your original KPIs and what you think is possible to do in the metaverse. If you don't have a product that would have a ton of value, obviously selling a pair of Nike kicks makes a ton of sense for them. But if you're selling lawn care accessories, that's not going to be maybe the greatest sort of experience. However, there could be playful ways to do, sort of a sales room, a virtual sales room type of a experience with them. I think for people trying to wrap their head around what ways to get involved in the metaverse, I wanted to even take maybe a larger step out and just try to get people comfortable with what to do to even begin, how to play with it, because a lot of people are maybe here to learn about it in the first place. And then maybe they're looking for some concrete examples of how to do something. But the first thing to do is curiosity, play with the metaverse. You can go to decentraland.com. You can get in there. You can set up a wallet. You'll grab usernames too. That's important to make sure that your brand doesn't get co-opted by somebody else. Have a look at what your competitors are doing, see if there's anything that they're doing that makes sense for your businesses, and how you might intercept things like that. One of the lost arts is stockpiling 3D assets. So once your moment comes to be involved in the metaverse, that you actually have a library of things to pull from, not only as potential NFT opportunities, but also to start to build some of these brand experiences. And then, maybe look at how your experiential marketing plans could potentially translate. If it's a brand play, you have a longer term sales cycle. A brand play makes a lot of sense. We're trying to build a closer relationship with our customers. We can give them, product reveals. We can give them a closer look of behind the scenes, manufacturing, things like that, that sort of bring them inside in ways that are completely new and different than they could ever experience them before. You have something that's a wearable product. It makes great sense to try and see how direct monetization could be a play for you through sponsorships or getting involved with other partners, that have experiences where transactions can be made, brand mashups that make sense, that align with your own brand values. And like you said, I think the sort of engagement component of it too, the try before you buy, has been a little bit less successful in terms of my experience on the metaverse. I think all of those things will improve over time as the hardware improves, as 3D assets get better, as they start to push the technology a little bit further. But that's certainly, not to say that it's out of the question. So hopefully that got, a few answers in there for you against that original question.
Yeah, that's great. So just kind of to tease it out, I heard Jay mention 4 kind of initial steps. One is to log into Decentraland or another kind of metaverse marketplace, set up a crypto wallet, reserve your brand handles.
Yes.
And then look at what your competitors are doing. So, back in Web 1, you made sure to get your domain name for your brand, bizhack.com. And there was like a land grab at the beginning of Web 1 for great domains. And then people made fortunes just selling those domains. That's kind of the land grab that's beginning to happen in the metaverse. And so you need to be aware of that. If you're a larger company, you need to be reserving your brand handles now before someone else basically hijacks it from you.
Right.
Cesi, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I see in the chat, somebody said it sounds expensive. And the good news is that it isn't actually, it's free to reserve your handles. It's free to play with all these experiences. What does become expensive is if you intend to actually purchase virtual real estate in one of these metaverses, that ranges in value. That could be a bit, but honestly, for the Miller Lite, I think they spent $19,000 to own that in perpetuity, which doesn't seem so crazy for a brand, but obviously if you're a smaller agency, that is a pretty reasonable chunk of change to have to commit. They were building a larger experience as well, but if you look at trade show booths and things like that, I always try to go back to experiential marketing just for some at least level playing field numbers.
Perfect. I want to bring it over to Cesi. Cesi, could you sound a note of caution for us just about everybody's hyping this. People are losing a lot of money. People who maybe shouldn't be playing in this space are, and it's hurting a lot of everyday people. And you, as part of the mayor's initiative, are seeing this firsthand. Is there any notes of caution that, how can we get started, but how can we not lose our shirts in the process?
So I really appreciate that question. So I've been a crypto investor since was on one of the first major mainstream crypto projects that existed by a major corporation. I'm a crypto believer, and yet I would encourage a lot of caution, especially when it comes to first-time users. So one, anytime that you're thinking through an advertising campaign, you need to think about your holistic strategy, and you need to make sure that it ladders into your overall goals and that you understand what money you're putting behind it, and where you're going to be maximizing the return and where your audience is. And so if you are selling shoes in real life, I would ask myself, and you are trying to get new customers, is the best place to go into the metaverse to get new customers? Only you will know that, depending on your shoe brand, but you need to make sure that there is alignment there with your North Star, and that there is a clear understanding of your KPIs, key performance indicators, and how you're going to reach your goals. The second thing that I would say is that most of these platforms that we're discussing right now rely on cryptocurrencies as the method of payment. And they do not offer what we call fiat on and off ramps that are very easy. So fiat currency is US tender. It's what we all use in the United States. And to get fiat in and out of of some of these platforms is a little bit difficult. So you have to be more knowledgeable about the crypto and the coins that you're using. The second thing to know is that once you're interacting with crypto, it's not just the cost of interacting. You just don't give, somebody a couple of crypto. There's a transaction cost associated with it. In fiat currency, that transaction cost exists. It's just obfuscated by Visa or MasterCard or your bank. You're paying that on the back end and you don't even realize it. In crypto, it's more transparent, but there is a transaction cost. And then there are tax implications. So when you hold fiat on your books for more than 24 hours as a corporation, you are subject to capital gains, short-term capital gains, if you have gains. And that is something that I don't think most people appreciate, that if right now we're in a bear market, so crypto unfortunately keeps, it's more or less stable right now, but it has gone down from the traditional high. But if it were to go up, you would be seeing that you would have to pay short-term capital gains of 30% on your crypto assets that you hold for more than 24 hours as a company. So there are real serious tax implications here that you need to think about before you start dipping your toes. That doesn't mean that it's not the right strategy for you. This could be the right strategy for you, and taking all of Jay's great points and making sure that you are thinking about capturing your handle and making sure that you're thinking about the placement and your brand content might be the right thing to do given your audience, but it all goes back to where your audience is, and then understanding the risks and opportunities with any new form of technology.
Really well said, and thank you for that. Next session, we're going to be talking about the financial, session 2 next Wednesday, the financial and legal implications of Web3. We're going to go deeper into NFTs and cryptocurrencies. We're going to also talk about restaurants that are using NFTs to sell desserts. In other words, you can create scarcity and hype up something in a way that could make people physically come to your restaurant and spend hundreds of dollars for something that they might have otherwise spent $30 on. And so, Jay, I see you're kind of perking up to this. We want to be cautious, but we want to be opportunistic.
Right.
Can you talk about, let's say you're in the initial part of a conversation with the brand that feels like metaverse marketing is a way they want to go. How do you find that right fit where you're balancing kind of risk and potential reward?
I go, it's Franchesca said it the best. You just have to go back to what are your key goals and KPIs? I've worked in immersive technology for over a decade now, and people would come to me all the time. I want a VR thing. I want an AR thing. And it's like, well, what are you actually trying to accomplish? And is that the actual, the technology that you need to use in order to accomplish that? I can't tell you how many times that I talk people out of doing something that they're telling me that they want. But it does go back to that audience. Is your audience there? Are those the early ones on the innovation curve, that you're trying to capture their imaginations and their ultimately their wallets? Are they in the metaverse? And right now there are a number of places that you can go to see who is operating in the metaverse, to see if that's your perfect marketing target. But it is not for everybody. It is definitely not for everybody. And to be the first to something doesn't always mean that you're going to get the right sort of reaction or the right sort of KPIs out of it too. It just, every time somebody comes to me asking about my advice or consultation on it, I just go laser focused on what is it that they're trying to do. If they just want to light $100,000 on fire, that's great. We can do that. If they're really trying to get some measurable results from their execution, then let's talk about those. And then let's talk about a way that we can get you there. And I every time I start a project, that's really what I try to do and be laser focused on, so that we also set up the right ways in which to measure that campaign, that activation, or that long-term commitment. Because the other thing too is that you want to buy real estate in the metaverse, you want to set up something. Now you've got to support that thing for the long term. It's going to be people and money invested in it, and really just trying to make sure that people are opening their eyes to the absolute longest term level of commitment to all of these things, and is that supporting your long-term goals as well? I think there are a number of great examples of companies that are doing that, the right way, but they also began this journey in an authentic way in brick and mortar, and then translating those experiences to the metaverse. So, it was intentional for them to, to head there.
Thank you, Cesi.
I mean, I think that Jay is bringing up a really great point, which is the intentionality behind it. I would also say this: everyone on this call, every single person at this call is at the beginning of Web3. You are not late to the party. The party hasn't even started. No one even knows who the DJ is or who's. You are very, very, very early to this party. And just the idea that you are finding out about this is going to better position you in the future. And so I would start playing with all of the platforms. I would see what works for you and what doesn't work for you, what resonates for you and doesn't resonate for you. This is going to be a huge time investment because, when I think about Meta, Facebook, and when I started, I started at Facebook 9 years ago. We did not have one pagers on the website for how you set up a Facebook business account. They didn't exist. You were on your own. It was a platform that was just sort of, we're making this easy platform and everyone get on it. It's never that easy. Now Facebook has a one pager to say, step 1 is you put in your name. Step 2 is you go here. Step 3 is, step 4 is. So where we are right now is even before 9 years ago at Facebook, but there is no one pager for how you get on. And so it's going to require a lot of time and energy to get on these platforms, which I totally encourage you to invest in because it's awesome, right? Who doesn't like to be first? But just take the time to learn it. There is absolutely no rush. And as you learn it, you're going to perfect your strategy. And that's going to be incredible. And it's going to pay off huge dividends in the end.
I just wanted to give a plug to the work that Brett and I are doing, which is we're going to create a one-pager for you, a takeaway, which is just a summary of some of the best advice that we're getting. It's not a definitive one, and it's going to change with time, but we will have a one-pager. Chamara Napoleon asked a great question, which really gets to the heart of marketing on the metaverse, which is, are we able to know how many people locally are in the metaverse for marketing purposes? I'll open that up either to you, Jay, or Cesi, if you know the answer to that.
Living adjacent to New York City, there are local businesses that are participating in the metaverse, but I don't think that I'm seeing scale with small businesses necessarily. It's mainly the largest players that are currently in the metaverse, as far as I'm seeing.
Yeah, Cesi?
I mean, we're seeing the same thing. Companies like Sturdy are now an Accenture preferred vendor. So you're going to start seeing better economics. And so I think that we'll see more medium-sized businesses join the metaverse. But you're really talking about, if you're talking about small businesses, and now we're talking about companies that have less than 25 employees or small or medium-sized businesses that have less than 250 employees, you're talking about pretty tight margins and pretty tight at a moment in time where marketing across the board is going up. And so that's where that's one of the reasons that I think that we're not seeing more is just there's a limited amount of capital to put into this area. I expect over the next 5 years that we'll really see a dynamic shift. And I also think that we're going to see companies like Meta, like Google, like Amazon, like Apple join the metaverse. And these companies know how to bring people to new products. That is the thing. Companies know how to do better than anyone else. They can get a flywheel started and they can make sure that people are using it. And so I think that we'll find more easier on-ramps than the on-ramps that we're finding right now.
Yeah, I'll give you two kind of ways to approach this. Number one, you should ask your customers, like, are you on the metaverse? In which, games are you playing? Do you play Fortnite? Do you play Roblox? And then I would then go to those places, or maybe you're already there, maybe you even met them there, and just be a user and just kind of hang out and check it out and learn it. So for instance, if I were in a company that was catering to teenagers, I would be on Fortnite. I would be in Roblox. I think you'd be crazy not to be. Here's a great Web 2 example of this. years ago, we worked with a dance company in Doral, and there was a company, a social media emerging company called Musically, where all the girls who were in the classes were in Musically having tons of fun. Well, guess who bought Musically? TikTok. He has been in TikTok before TikTok was TikTok. And the reason why is because he asked his girls, where do you hang out? So you got to learn your customer. And if they're hanging out on a platform, it's your job to learn it. And that would be a really easy starting point for how to do some audience discovery and to really understand if this is a platform. And by the way, you have a lot of choices about how you market. If you go on this platform and you're loving it and you're enjoying it, then it's probably a good place to market as well. If your audience is there and you love it and you can go there in an authentic and transparent and vulnerable way, because that's what works, and you can be authentic in that space, then you're going to find success. You'll find a path to success, and you will be not only an early adopter, but one who's there for the right reasons. Sabine Source asked, the metaverse isn't regulated yet. Can someone pioneer the safety of the metaverse or Web3? Love that question. Let's ask it in session 2 on the financial and legal frameworks of Web3. So great question, wrong session. What budget ranges are recommended to participate? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna actually the one thing I was gonna pick up on was something that you said, and then Franchesca shook a note loose in my brain, which is, back in the day, Web 1.0, if you look to build a website, a transactional website, you were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Nowadays you can set up a Squarespace page for $25 a month, and you could do millions of dollars in revenue off that $25 a month, right? We are right at that very stage too, where if brands are looking to get involved in the metaverse, a limited number of companies building these experiences, limited number of tool sets, there's no such thing as like a WordPress engine for a metaverse. Meta is actually,
there's no off-the-shelf tools really.
Yeah, correct. So, it's a combination of a lot of custom work, and especially start talking about 3D, that third dimension adds just zeros to budgets. But, once somebody will crack the nut of creating, a more entry-level tool set, and that's when you're going to start to see these small, medium-sized businesses truly able to participate in a much more significant way, barring all of the legal and financial, crypto components that Franchesca was mentioning earlier. But budgets could be in the low hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I think that's kind of, if you're building an immersive experience, I think that's where you're at.
And I want to say one thing on the legal and regulation, because I think it's super important. I know that there's going to be a whole topic about it, so I'll just be super quick. With all new technologies, regulation lags. You are seeing significant regulation that is expected this year around cryptocurrencies. And so I wouldn't think about this as an unregulated space. There are already guardrails, but again, it's just understanding what those guardrails are, because they're different to traditional financial guardrails. But this is not, the metaverse is no longer about, 5 years ago when we started talking about this, the metaverse was a place where where people had the most fun and did the worst things on the internet. That's where we are anymore, because there have been significant improvements to make the metaverse, like Roblox, an increasingly safe space for a mass audience, which is where everyone wants us to go. Everyone wants us to be a mass audience play. And in order for this to be a mass audience play, it has to be increasingly safer and safer.
Yeah. And you also do see brands being responsible for that too. Miller Lite was told by Decentraland that they needed the age gateway in order to have people come into their experiences, which is a standard practice on the regular web. So, you are seeing some level of responsibility and corporate stewardship to try and make sure that that's, adhered to.
Yeah. And Dan, I just want to comment too, you had said if you're targeting, 15 to 17-year-olds hop on Roblox, but I don't want to pigeonhole or stereotype. So Gucci has the famous Gucci gardens in Italy, recreated the Gucci gardens in the metaverse using Roblox. Is that their target audience, or is that the platform, the meta world that they decided to execute on? There are many, I see some questions about, where to get started. There are some that are more business friendly, that are more business-like, that are some that are more game-like and more childlike. And then if you look at what Facebook is doing in the Horizon worlds, I think it maybe is a little bit in between, right? It has the fun, gamey part, but it also could be used for business, right? So I think that there are so many platforms and meta worlds out there right now and there's only going to be more. You need to find the one that maybe gels with your brand or your brand aesthetic, your brand style, your brand, messaging, your brand culture, right? And you don't have to say I have to go to this one or that one necessarily, because over time they're going to get interconnected, right? And you want to find the one that maybe is the best fit for you.
Yeah, that's a great example. I actually joined Facebook when I was a student at Princeton, and it was only open to Ivy League schools. And then, of course, Facebook became Facebook, your grandpa's social media platform. So the point is that, a platform grows and evolves and its audience shifts and changes with time. So I love that. JD Hanau asked kind of what is a starting budget for this? And Gasoline de Source asked, what is the cost to create your platform for the metaverse, and must you know coding? So could you we're going to do like a quick lightning round to get through some of these questions. I want to give a couple more fun, concrete examples of actual metaverse campaigns, and then Jackie has a question that we'll wrap up the Q&A with. We're going to run obviously a little past our 1:30 stop time, but folks are engaged, and I want to keep going and take advantage of these great experts. So Cesi, Jay, Brett, throw out just really quickly a line or two. What would be kind of a budget that you probably need to have available to really make a serious marketing or advertising play in the metaverse? I'll start with you, Jay.
So I think if we're talking about a sponsorship opportunity, you're probably low tens of thousands of dollars, depending upon who you're aligning with and what sort of creative work, content work needs to be done. I think if you are actually attempting to build your own space, your own experience in the metaverse, I think we're talking in the $100,000+ range to truly do something. And then again, I don't want that point to be left out that I mentioned earlier about the long-term sustainment. Miller Lite had theirs for 1 week where they had monitoring, people in their experience monitoring what was happening so that they could police a little bit. There are some behind the scenes costs, ongoing costs. I think if you do anything north of that, it's really just, more about interactions, completely custom work, custom brand experiences, then you're, in the $250,000 to $300,000 range likely.
Great. So tens of thousands for a sponsorship to hundreds of thousands to build your own custom experience. Great.
Yeah.
Chelsea.
So just to ground us again in sort of definitions, the metaverse starts from JPEGs and goes all the way to interact headphones. I mean, headsets, incredible with the headphones. So if you start all the way at the JPEG section, right, where basically you're talking about, you're creating a QR code on the blockchain. Sorry to all my NFT friends that will not like it described that way. And then third-party platform, and you're looking in the low thousands. If you go all the way to gaming and headsets and immersive world, and I'm going to go into the, into a specific ambiance, and I'm walking into somebody's store and I can purchase things, then you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you can build what you want. Again, I think that if you have one takeaway, there are two takeaways that I would have from this conversation. One of them is from Dan, one of them is from Jay. From Dan, it's talk to your customers, understand what they want. And from Jay is understand what your budget is and what your KPIs are. And so you can back your way into any budget that you want to back your way into, but you're not going to get everything that you want depending on your budget.
Brett. Thank you, Cesi.
No, I mean, I think those are great answers. So, if you start with objects, sort of like Cesi was saying, you could start with a QR code, or like Nike's building shoes, but they're selling them. So they're actually, what they're investing, selling them to make money. I want to make, there's a lot of questions about metaverses and meta worlds. I put in the a comment in one of the questions, like, think of a meta land or a meta place or a meta world just as like, it's like a website. There's going to be hosting costs for your website, right? That hosting cost is on a metaverse platform. Like some of them are free right now. You can host on you know, some of these platforms for free, but there is going to be a cost to set that up, you know, and budgetarily, I think Cesi made a really good point. Like, do you have existing 360-degree photos? You can absolutely use those in a headset right now, or 360-degree videos. You can use those right now. So if you have some existing assets, you know, go for it, because let's start there and learn. Don't invest a huge amount of money until you've tested something small and learned from it. Did it work? Was the customer there? They like this, they didn't like that. They like this thing I didn't think they'd like, but you know, or guess what? Everyone really thought this little thing was the cool, right? So I would say test start small, test with what you can to get started. Yeah, this is the Wendyverse, Dan. This was super fun. You know, this one's built on Facebook's Horizon Worlds platform. You know, you can't buy you know, Wendy's in the metaverse, but if there's a scavenger hunt, and if you find 6 things, you get a coupon for 6 chicken nuggets at a real life Wendy's, right? So there's a payoff to exploring their meta world, which is fun. They also have this really fun game, you know, like the shuffleboard game where you skid the metal pucks down the sawdust thing, but they're hamburgers and you're sliding them down, and there's a leaderboard and your name shows up on the leaderboard against other people around that are playing. And so this is just a fun place to explore for sure.
And, you know, just to your point, you know, Wendy's didn't invent a new logo. You know, they were using some existing assets and populating it in this virtual world. And so, you know, one of those first steps we're recommending is just inventory any 3D graphics you have, any assets you have, and you could potentially leverage them if you wanted to kind of try to create an experience. Here's another example from Tommy.
Yeah, and I mentioned at the top of the call, the Fashion Week, Tommy Hilfiger, over 50 brands participated in the Metaverse Fashion Week, MVFW, which was on Decentraland, you know, Estee Lauder, Forever 21, a lot of others. And so it helped bring people to it because it was an event. It wasn't just one brand launching. And so being a quote unquote storefront or participating in a larger group, right? So if there's a industry group that's doing something and you want to have a booth in it, that might be a way less expensive, easier way to put your toe in and test than kind of building your own. In this case, a bunch of brands came in and they got together and did a fashion week. So they're able to really, you know, do a lot with a little, so to speak. So another good example here.
Yeah, and I'm starting to kind of hear a little bit of a theme. These seem to be national brands, well-known brands in fashion, alcohol, restaurants. I know we're seeing some examples of those that are really about like establishing a brand lifestyle and experience. And then when it comes to fashion, you can actually sell fashion in a meta world. And so those are just some of the areas that companies that we're hearing are starting to like really explore. Eventually, this will become something we all do, you know, just like, you know, Twitter started out with, you know, a lot of journalists and politicians and now has become a pretty ubiquitous platform. You know, the platforms will evolve and become more general as more people do it. Just wanted to quickly wrap up with a few last questions and then hand it to Jackie for hers. Ariel asked, any suggestions regarding how to get traffic data on each metaverse depending on location, neighborhood? One of the things that we wanted to make sure, Ariel, you heard is that the analytics are really, really early days. And so measuring success and having like really clear KPIs, which we've gotten really used to in Web 1 and Web 2, my understanding, unless anyone wanted to disagree, is we're not there yet. And so you're gonna have to be kind of patient with the analytics because it hasn't really caught up.
I will say real quick, one thing about that is that anything is possible, of course, but you might end up, you know, having custom work being done in order to truly capture that funnel or that KPI that you're looking for. There's no such thing as Google Analytics on, you know, that's going to by putting in tiny code is going to capture everything that you might want. So
yeah, I mean, early days. You know, did you sell your Nike shoe? Yes or no? That's an analytic that's pretty clear. Did people engage in your metaverse experience? How many and for how long? Those metrics are available. I'm not sure you're going to get like detailed geographic or biographical data on each of those participants like we've gotten used to in social media. But frankly, we're losing that soon as well. Angela Hisianos asked, this is a great question to wrap up with before I bring Jackie on. Are there any classes, groups, or ways where we can learn Metaverse for Dummies?
There are great resources in Miami. I'm sure that there are in New York. I'll speak to the ones in Miami. There's for women, there's a group called Web3 Equity. It's for women and BIPOC, and it focuses on making sure that there is equity in Web3. There are classes that are at Miami-Dade College that are absolutely fantastic. There are opportunities online from different sources. And then I would say Twitter is the best place to learn. And so if you start following people on Twitter, Dan, Brett, maybe we can send a few names to suggest just to make sure that they follow them. But that's the place where everyone is learning. As we said earlier, you're very early to the party. There are very, very, very few people that know more about Web3 than you do right now. And so you be at a perfect point, and it's all about what you can learn. And I would really highly encourage Twitter.
Yeah, I would share that same sentiment here. There are a lot of the AR VR organizations within New York City have gone on to include metaverse and blockchain technologies, into the sort of ongoing series. But you're rarely learning more than you can learn online at this point.
Perfect. Jay, Cesi, we would love your suggestions, and we're going to definitely incorporate that in the one pager. That's your, comprehensive guide to the metaverse and Web3. Just kidding. But we definitely would love to include, the Twitter handles, folks who are going to give you kind of a clear-eyed view, not hype you or try to sell you on something that's like half-baked. So we'll have some trusted resources for you guys in that takeaway at the end of these 4 sessions. So Jackie, you had a great question for Jay and Cesi, and then we'll go into our Q&A.
Yeah, no, I'll kick this around to anybody who can jump in here. I'm hearing, and first of all, this has been fantastic. All of you have been fabulous. So thank you. Learned a ton. I've been hearing a lot about experiences of brands that are presenting themselves in a very traditional way, which is a very brand to consumer. Of course, I've heard over and over again, know your consumer, know what your strategy is, but really wanted to find out, and especially in light of what we're hearing about diversity and inclusion, right? Rapidly changing demos all across the United States, Miami, one of the tech hubs now, right? Any brands out there collaborating with content creators, namely, of different groups that have done some really innovative things in the meta universe space? Do you know of any brands that have really leaned into the whole trend of inclusiveness, right? And use it to innovate and do something creative?
I think Franchesca had that great example from Bacardi, using music from artists, up and coming artists. I personally don't think I have like a really good example to share with you. I do find that online interactions tend to be inclusive in general when you don't know exactly who's behind an avatar. But I don't know of any big brands that are doing anything that I would specifically say that their first intent was behind inclusion. But that's certainly an interesting space to play.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. The brand affiliation that we are seeing with a lot of pop stars and music stars and musicians that are getting into the space you could look at that as that's more inclusive. But really what I'm seeing more than anything is that it's about trying to connect with younger audiences. By definition, those audiences are more diverse, that they're it's the second time that I'm going to say this, backing their way into it. So I don't mean to, yeah, suggest that they're not being thoughtful about it, but I don't think that it's forefront. It's more about how you engage with sort of a younger audience that is more likely to be using these new products, but that is by definition younger. What I am seeing though, which I think is interesting, is I'm seeing people experiment a lot, and because we don't know, everyone is throwing spaghetti at the wall and we don't know what sticks. I'm seeing much more creative campaigns and campaigns that are much more targeted at smaller groups. And that by definition, I think, is more inclusive, because you're not trying to have one message that appeals to everyone. You are saying, I understand that there are multiple groups here and I want to have multiple messages that will appeal to multiple people.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I see also Jennifer has a great point in the chat as well around the intentionality and thoughtfulness. I think that's awesome. The other thing too is that on the flip side, for different groups, I think that the metaverse presents a really incredible opportunity to be a part of the creation of it, as far as the creation of content, the creation of new business models, the creation of new structures. It's a great opportunity to be involved. And so just kind of throwing it out there, as like a lot of the folks from this webinar are probably coming from the new tech hubs just spun off, like Miami, New York, DC. We've seen a movement away from just Silicon Valley as being the center of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I wanted to just remind you guys, you're going to get a recording of this session on our YouTube channels, both BizHacks and StarMarks, within the next couple of days. Please feel free, if you want to watch that Miller Lite ad again, to watch there. We'll be sending a summary of our key takeaways and resources via email at the end of all this. You'll automatically be enrolled in the upcoming 3 masterclass sessions, and there's the link if you want to invite others to join. You can see the incredible quality that we're bringing to the table. Next week, we're talking about the financial and legal implications of Web3 for business with Brett Malinowski and Kim Pryor. Kim is actually the co-author of the first textbook in blockchain law and based here in Miami. So we're incredibly lucky to have her. Then on 9/21, we're going to talk about audience employee engagement and recruiting. And on 9/28, some incredible case studies of how to do business using Web3.
Actually,
I wanted
just go back. Can you go back one slide? So Jackie, one of your questions about this, the 9/21 session, Angela Anthony, her company Scoutable is doing some amazing things with using the metaverse for recruitment, and where people can create their own avatars, and then they're conducting their interviews using their avatars, which immediately removes all bias from the interviewing process. And I think this is going to be a fascinating session on 9/21.
Perfect. Thank you for pointing that out. So Jackie, head of strategic partnerships, diversity, inclusion, and belonging at LinkedIn. And I promised you at the beginning, we all have heard of DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I am really interested in the use of the word belonging. So maybe we could start there and just ask you about that. Cesi and Jay, thank you guys. We'd welcome you to stay on, or if you need to go, no worries. But we really appreciate your gift of your time and expertise, and we're very grateful for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your work in this space and supporting brands and supporting small businesses, Cesi, in South Florida. So Jackie, belonging, talk to us.
Yeah, no, definitely. And thanks for having me. Belonging at LinkedIn, we talk about diversity as being diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And belonging is all about, having an environment that you actually truly feel that you belong. Diversity, when you look at, it's all about the environment itself, right? That's why you really, it's when you can be represented in an atmosphere, right? In an environment, but what does it really look like to really feel that your contributions are truly valued and you are seen as an innovator, right? That's where the true magic occurs when you could do that. And you could see that in the space too, like, when we were having the discussion about Web 3.0, imagine the innovation that will truly occur when like everyone feels like they can contribute. And that's to me, some of the key points coming out of the transition to this technology.
That's great. Would you talk to us, Jackie, about some of your work on diversity, inclusion, and belonging in the context of LinkedIn, and what exactly does that mean for you and for the company?
Yeah, no, it's at LinkedIn. DIBS, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, is actually one of our very important to the company. Talent is the #1 priority, and that covers many things, right? The structure of that, it's from anywhere from how we recruit, inclusion recruiting, all the way to creating an environment of belonging for all. We have 10 plus ERGs from all of our employees to make sure that they feel that they're in an environment. And then also to make sure everyone's growing and developing. And to all the business leaders listening to this, I mean, really, when you think about DEI, it covers all of that. I'm sure Daniela is very attuned to this, and so that's how we think about it, as well as what happens on the network itself.
Perfect. And do you feel like what are some concrete things that LinkedIn is trying to do to make it a more inclusive space? I actually have I haven't actually really thought about LinkedIn from a diversity and equity and inclusion perspective, meaning I'm not sure if I really know the answer of, do BIPOC communities, do women feel safe there? And so I'd love for you to talk about like where maybe some of the opportunities are. I will say this.
Yes.
I feel like LinkedIn is a safer space than Facebook. And there are very conscious things that LinkedIn, and then now its corporate owner, Microsoft, has done to restrict the virality of content to make it safer. And so I really applaud you and Microsoft, your owners, for foregoing engagement, views, money in order to create a better and safer space, for engagement. I do have to say, right, because I'm not like here to pitch LinkedIn, that it is getting a little bit of, a lot of incoming sales in-mails, but by and large, I don't go into LinkedIn, worry about what I'm going to see, or feel sort of besieged or under attack from advertisements and crazies like I sometimes do on some of the other platforms. So I feel like LinkedIn has done a good job creating a professional workplace for us, but obviously there are challenges and work to be done. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about where do you think the next step is going to be in making it even more inclusive, even more safe.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, our team has worked very hard to make sure that the platform is a professional environment, meaning that everyone is respectful in terms of expressing views, but also it's a constructive environment, right? And we've done a lot to make sure that our standards are in place to do that. And glad that you've recognized that. And we've been recognized as one of the trusted platforms. So really appreciate you saying that, right? As far as making sure it's more inclusive, I'll actually talk more about my specific role. My job is I run strategic partnerships for our global diversity and inclusion team, right? So we have about 50 partners across the network. In fact, several of them are involved in a lot of the work that we do in the metaverse, like Blavity, for instance, is the largest Black tech company globally, media company globally, and they've done a lot of work as far as setting up metaverses for that community. So we do a lot of work with them. Another is LTX Quest. So organizations such as LTX Quest are very large communities that cater to the Latinx population. And so in my job, what I do is I partner with like the largest, most influential groups just to make sure that they're more diverse and inclusive voices on the platform. We launched something called Black Voices a few years ago, and it's up to about 8 million LinkedIn members are following that. Some of the partners that I used have partnered with, the followerships is up to 1.5 million and growing, and grew tremendously over the last couple of years. So we do a lot as far as, just cultivating new influencers, both women, Black, Latino, LGBT audiences. So a lot of that is happening right now.
You had asked the question earlier about creators and thought leaders. And it seems to me, I recall, and just so everybody knows, we'll wrap up in 4 minutes, but I just want to squeeze the juice out of this as much as possible because it's amazing to have you guys here. I remember that you were doing some initiatives to like unearth thought leaders and give them training and a platform to be louder and noisier about their thought leadership. I'm very fuzzy though on the details. Is that still a program you guys are running? Is that something that maybe some people who are still here, more than 2/3 of the folks have stayed to the end, are still here, could potentially apply to? Is there anything you can share about that as we wrap up?
Yeah, look up for our creators program. That's what you're referring to, right? So we are running a program. We kicked off the second cohort just recently, but basically we're running programs which really encourage our members to get more active on the platform, to create content, really guide them in how to do that, how to build audiences, how to engage people through video, new features that we have. So that's what so definitely look out for those programs as they're kicked off on a pretty regular basis.
So that's the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator Program, a 6-week program.
Exactly.
Amazing. Well, Jackie, is there anything else you wanted to share before we wrap up?
Just a really great opportunity to be here on the call today. I think one of the big insights that I've had about this whole Web 0.3 and how it appeals to different audiences is that a lot of the cities, especially post-pandemic, we've just seen, just the growth, incredible growth in different centers within the US, right? Which happen to be diverse cities with a lot of diversity. Miami, New York, DC, Houston, just different parts of the country, Austin, that also have been creating a lot of tech jobs, right? And it's parallel to what's happening as far as like the Web 3.0, where things are more decentralized. There's more of a focus on community, a more focus on, increase in ownership. So I'm just seeing a really great opportunity in the sea change here for different groups to get involved and to participate in the creation of the future. So just wanted to talk about that. Just a real life example, real world example, how it exists right now. And it's just an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we've learned with BizHack is one of the best things you can do from a DE&I perspective is partner with the right organizations and have them provide their access to their networks and their credibility so that that's a way to create a sense of safety. So thank you so much, Jackie, Jay, Brett, phenomenal job. Tiffany, thank you as always. And we'll see all of you guys in 1 week at 12:30 on next Wednesday to talk about financial and legal of Web3. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.